Welcome back to the Adventure Athletes podcast, world's #1 podcast for adventure athletes, celebrating stories of those putting themselves through virtuous struggles to improve the world around them. In this week's episode, I sit down with Laura Butcher, a cancer survivor turned GB Triathlete. In this week's episode, we talk about her experience with bowel cancer, how triathlon helped her deal with her cancer diagnosis, how sharing the diagnosis was empowering for her, going from chemo to completing an ironman, and the longer lasting effects of bowel cancer. Now, in each episode, I like to give a shout out to someone online that is just inspiring me and I'm looking up to. And this week, I'm giving it out to the guys at Staying Tall. I've had them as previous guests on the podcast, and I recently spoke at one of their events. And being part of that event really opened my eyes to just the impact that they're having on the world in such a positive way. So shout out to the guys at Stand Tall. Make sure you head over and support them as much as you can. Now, at the end of each episode, the guest sets a weekly challenge for you guys. This is now up on our website, so you can go back, look at all our previous guest challenges and take part in as many as you wish without having to watch the full podcast. But we would appreciate it if you watched all the way to the end. As you guys know as well, I am fundraising for BigMoose. I'm currently training for a world record attempt where I'm going to cover the greatest distance flipping a tyre in 24 hours as possible. The current record being 11 kilometers, and fingers crossed I'm going to absolutely smash that. So make sure you're following along. Make sure you're checking out the website and keeping up to date with everything we're doing here at Adventure Athletes. But for now, enjoy the podcast. So what was your call to adventure?
Cancer, bowel cancer. So, do you want me to go from the start?
Yeah.
So, I joined the Tri Club in, I think it's 2019. I've got a friend who's German who does triathlon. We met in Armenia, of all places. Invited him to do Ironman in Wales. So that was in 2018. So he came down in 2019. I wasn't in the triathlon world. I'd never watched triathlon live or on TV or anything. I come from a swimming background, so I was a competitive swimmer when I was a child up until sort of 17, 18, and then got into running in about 2015. So I went to watch him in Ironman and was sort of walking around, didn't really know many people, so I was kind of walking around on my own, sort of tracking him on the app. And then when he was coming past, I was like obviously screaming for him. And then I kind of knew, as I was walking around, I sort of saw a lot of people I knew from the swimming world and the running world. And I just remember watching the race thinking, oh wow, these people are inspirational, crazy. Yeah, so I was really inspired, and it was just the most amazing day. So yeah, sort of 2 weeks later, joined a Tri Club. Like I said, I'm from a swimming background, so I'm a decent swimmer. I run, but I'm not great today. I'm all right. I'm, half and half. But didn't own a bike, and I was like, what's the worst that can happen? So that was the start of my triathlon journey. So that was in 2019. I'm trying to think now, 2020. I was obviously in the club, and COVID hit. So did a lot of my training on my own because you had to. And then I think it was like August 2020, I was going out to cycle with some friends from running club. Went to Swansea. It was going to be my longest ride, like 65 miles. And then on the way back in SA1 area, hit a pothole. I literally couldn't have been going any slower, about 1 mile an hour. Hit a pothole, went flying, landed on my front, broke my collarbone. And this is the start of my journey, because I was obviously taken to hospitals, put on painkillers, and I'm not even somebody who takes headache tablets. But I was in a lot of pain. I had a lot of nerve damage in my arm. So went back a few days later to meet a consultant, was put on different medication because I was like, this isn't working, even though I don't even do, like I said, headache tablets. put me on stronger medication, and one of the side effects of that is constipation. So that kind of went on for 3 weeks, and I was like, oh, this is a bit random, but it was a bit like, I was obviously pre-warned that would happen. And when I did eventually go to toilet after 3 weeks, I was like, oh, that's odd, it's blood. I was looking obviously on the back of the pack, as you do, and was told when you do go, you might have some bleeding because you're kind of straining. And I was like, okay, this is totally normal. And then it kind of went on, and I was like, oh, this is lasting a bit longer than I expected. And I think then maybe October, November 2020, I went to doctor because I was like, right, this has been going on since kind of, I don't know what it was, late August. Something's not right. And back in 2010, my mum had been diagnosed with bowel cancer. So she was, I think it was a month before her 60th birthday. So I was obviously already aware of the symptoms of bowel cancer. So I went to doctor, and being really dramatic, was like, oh, hi, this is happening. I think I've got bowel cancer. And they were probably like, okay, I think you've been a bit dramatic. But I was like, can I have a test? Yeah, no problem. So did an examination, sent me for blood test. So following week I had a blood test. And then maybe about a week after, I had the results for that, came back negative. And this is where my issues started, because I was like, okay, but the bleeding's still happening. And it was kind of like, oh, take these tablets, you'll be fine. Few months, it was kind of like Christmas was coming up, so, you know, everything's really busy, so kind of left it like January, February, and by that point I started having more symptoms, and I, as you do, Dr. Google, and I was like, right, there's something not right, and still bleeding, and had other sort of side effects as well. Or some symptoms rather. So went back to the doctor in February, and I was like, it still hasn't cleared up the blood, and I've got other things that are happening. And can I be tested for whatever's next on the list? But unbeknown to me at that time, because I only found out probably over a year ago, that because the blood test for bowel cancer came back as negative, I was taken from the top of the list right down to the bottom. So it was like non-urgent. So I then got sent, but only because I pushed for an IBD and IBS test. So I had that blood test, came back negative, and then somebody said to me those words, "Don't worry, you're fine." And I was just like clearly not fine. And then having to push it again, I got referred then for a sigmoidoscopy, which is a bit like a colonoscopy, to test for colitis and Crohn's. But this was like the February, and I had to wait till the 23rd of July 2021. So I went in for the test. I went in the morning, and you get a choice whether you're sedated or not, and I chose not to because I had a meeting in work in the afternoon. And they were like, you sure? I was like, yeah, it'll be fine. And obviously went to the hospital on my own, and they're like, right, this is what's going to happen. Had the test. And then they were like, right, we're just going to sort things out. The doctor's going to write up his notes, and he's going to speak to you. And I was like, okay. And I'd kind of, the few days beforehand, remember running in my lunch break thinking, right, just in case it's bad news, prepare yourself to hear the C word. But don't worry, you won't be, because you've already found out that it's not cancer. So the doctor came to the side of my bed and held my hand, and I was remember thinking, oh, that's really weird, why are you holding my hand? And he just looked at me and he was like, I'm really sorry, Laura, you've got cancer. And I was just like, at that point, it was just like, my whole world just stopped. I remember looking at him thinking, what? And I was just like, what do you mean? And he was like, I'm pretty sure, 99% sure. He said, we have to send the biopsies off, which I'd seen them doing because you can see everything on the camera. We have to send the samples off, biopsy. I'm 99% sure you've got rectal cancer. And I was like, but that can't be right. It's like I had a test in November, and this was the July, to say that I haven't got cancer. So I'm like, that can't be the case. And he just kind of looked at me. I remember thinking, oh God. And like nobody was talking in the room. There was like myself, a doctor, 2 nurses. And I was just like, obviously burst into tears. And I looked at him and I don't know, he didn't know what to say, I didn't know what to say. And I just kind of was like, okay, this is not happening. So I remember just going like that, because there was like a wall there and a wall there. And I thought, if I don't look at him, it's not happening. So I just looked away and I was like crying. I was like, yeah, it's not happening. But obviously that was that. So yeah, that was the start of my journey. So yeah, I was into triathlon before the cancer, but I'd never actually done a race. I'd only just started training, so it was only on the start of my journey. But cancer was my sort of moment. How I've got to this stage now, and like everything I've sort of achieved really is through the cancer. I don't think I would have pushed myself if it wasn't for the cancer.
This is probably going to sound like a bit of a stupid question.
No.
But how did that change things for you? How did that diagnosis change everything?
I remember thinking at the start, like everybody who's been on a cancer journey, everybody deals with it differently. Nobody gives you a book and says, right, here's how to deal with it. And I think it's one of those things, you either sink or swim. And like, nobody ever wants to think about having cancer before they get it, because you're like, no, it's not going to happen to me. And I was, it's never going to happen to me. I'm young, I was 39 years old. You hear of people getting bowel cancer, it was like an old man's disease. It's definitely not. And obviously through other people I've done research since, and people I speak to now, there's a lot of young people getting bowel cancer. Sorry, what was the question you said?
So how did that diagnosis change everything for you?
Okay, so could I stop a sec?
Yeah.
Sorry, I get these things where I get memory loss. So sometimes my concentration is not great.
It's okay.
A second, sorry.
No worries, we can take our time. There's no rush for this.
I do get spells where I just stare and I try and say something, it just doesn't come out. So with a cancer diagnosis, it was like, for me, sink or swim. I thought, right, you can either, and I'm not criticising how anybody deals with cancer, everybody's on their own journey, but I can either sit here and cry, and obviously early days you do cry and cry and cry, and like I was diagnosed on the Friday and I just cried non-stop till the Monday, didn't sleep at all, because understandably your head's just gone. I remember getting to the Monday and speaking to my dad and being like, right, how do I deal with this? And he was like, what do you mean? And I just remember thinking, I can either sit here and cry and just obviously carry on with all the treatment and everything that's going to happen. Obviously everything was just so overwhelming, or I could just get on with it. And that was my way of getting on with it. So triathlon for me was like my distraction. I don't think I would have dealt with it, the cancer as well, without the triathlon, because obviously early days I was still in work and I kept the diagnosis a secret from everybody, apart from sort of parents, sister, best friends and work. Apart from them, it was a secret from everyone, because I just wasn't ready to tell people. And I thought sort of when I was diagnosed, I remember them asking, being sort of put into a family room and them saying to me, right, if you've got any questions, and everything just, your mind just clears and you're like, there's literally nothing in my head. And there's only one question I had, which was, am I going to die? Which is the question everyone, I'm guessing, wants to ask. But yeah, so the first 5 months it was a secret, and looking back, that there is no right and wrong way dealing with cancer, but if it happened again, would I let it go for 5 months without telling anybody? No, because it really stressed me out. And the reason I came out with it in the end, because firstly, people noticed that I'd stopped training, or training as much. And secondly, I was just so stressed out. It was just the burden of like keeping that secret was just horrific. And it was just, I was going through in my mind, like, how am I going to tell people, and how are people going to react? So yeah, I threw myself into training. So I had people having a go at me, who some people knew I had cancer. Some people, and this was sometimes some people after the diagnosis, they were like, why are you training so much? And I was like, with all due respect, this is my cancer. I'll deal with it in my way. As long as I'm not hurting anybody else, then I'll do whatever I think is right. And I was obviously told by my medical team, the healthier you are going into your treatment and your operations, the more chance you are of, the being able to sort of catch the cancer, and get through the treatment and all that sort of stuff. So I took it literally, and I trained and trained and trained, to the point of exhaustion. I know people were looking back now, people were worried about me, and I was just, I knew people were worried about me, and I knew I was probably training too much, but I didn't know how else to deal with it. Yeah. Like, I didn't want to sit there and watch daytime TV all day, because I'd done that the first few months and it was boring. Obviously, I couldn't do the things I wanted to do, like life was just not normal anymore. So the only thing I knew how to do was train. So I swam, and I biked, and I ran, and I redid it every day. And I was on the bike, like, sometimes out and about, sometimes on the turbo. I'd go on there for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I'd go out running, even though I'm not the best runner, and I don't love running. I tolerate running, I always say. But I'd go out and do like half a marathon, sometimes more, because I just needed that space to sort of switch off. And when I was like swimming, biking, running, for that amount of time, I didn't have cancer. So you could just switch it off. And then afterwards you'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot I got cancer. So yeah.
Do you think training that much helped physically? It sounds like it definitely helped mentally and gave you that safe space. But physically, do you think it was the right thing to do?
I think so, because I was talking to the surgeons before, probably, I don't know what it was, 8 months or whatever it was before the first surgery, because I had 2 surgeries. So I had IVF to freeze my eggs, because I haven't got any children. So IVF to freeze my eggs before the treatment started, because that was going to make me infertile and sort of project me into menopause. So between August and October I did that. And then I went into 5 days of radiotherapy, and then I think it was 5 months of chemotherapy, which was 6 cycles, so then like a 3-week cycle. And then a major operation, which was in May 22, and that was to remove the cancer and also lymph nodes, because it spread to 18 lymph nodes, and to give me a temporary stoma to help give my rectum a chance to recover. And then September 22 then was the stoma reversal. What are you going along with it?
So you're saying about how the physical training helped
you? Yeah. So the surgeon said, the fitter you can be, going into the treatment, but especially the operation, the sort of better the outcome, really. So I trained and I took it to the extreme. And I remember going for a fitness test, which just made me laugh. They were like, right, you need to go to the hospital to have a fitness test to see. They give you like your like a percentage chances of survival sort of thing. And I was like, sorry, what? Like, really? And they were like, oh yeah, you know, we do this for everyone. And I was like, oh, that's a bit harsh. So I remember sort of going to this fitness test, and then me typically thinking, right, well, I better prepare for it. So I had like all my sports stuff on, and I remember saying to my friend, oh, do you think I need my cleats? And she was like, my friend's not into sort of triathlon. She was like, what do you mean? What does that mean? I was like, you know, like my cycling shoes with the clips. And she was like, mate, is in a hospital. Like, I think like trainers will be fine. I was like, all right, okay. So I was going to be doing like a bike test, and I got there. I remember talking to the doctor there, and he was like, oh, we've been reading your file for the last few weeks, and we've been really excited to meet you. You're like the fittest person who's ever come through outdoors. And I was like, oh, thank you very much. And they were like, all right, you know, we're going to do this fitness test, but obviously because it's on a bike, and you get like oxygen attached to you. And they sort of assess how fit you are. And they said, we put, you know, everyone through this. Because like we usually get people in here like 70s, 80s and 90s. And I was like, okay. So they're like, we're going to sort of push you. I was like, yeah, it's fine, go for it. And they really did. But yeah, the physical side, the mental side, yeah, I need that to get through day to day. But physical side, I would say, is probably the fittest I've been in my life, which sounds crazy. So yeah, on the inside, I had cancer, and it was slowly spreading. But it's the fittest I've ever been in my life, which is just crazy. But yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah.
How did that then affect your triathlon journey? Because you said you'd started triathlon, you hadn't done any races, then you got this diagnosis, and you built up to the fittest you'd ever been. When did the events start coming in then?
So I was meant to do my first race in, I'm trying to think. It was during COVID, I think it was May 21. Yeah, so it was about 6 weeks before diagnosis. And due to COVID, the race was cancelled, and it was down in Cornwall. So I went anyway, just kind of did a little mini break. But that time I was sort of in the back of my mind of like, do I have cancer? Do I have something else? So like things were sort of brewing, but I obviously didn't know the results at that point. And had the tests. So yeah, literally like I was diagnosed, and obviously the first day, well, the first like 3 days was just cancer, you couldn't think of anything else. And then like they said, like on the Monday when I started trying to think rationally about life and what that's going to involve, it was that sudden realization, oh my gosh, like I'm meant to be training for a triathlon. Like I'm not a triathlete at this point because I've never done a race. But what's going to happen to my triathlon? And I sat there and thought, but what happens if I die, but I've never done a triathlon? Which in the grand scheme of things doesn't actually matter. But I was just like, but I got to do a race before I die, because I didn't know what stage I was. So I went through, from the July until the February, I asked what stage I was and wasn't told. And I asked numerous times, and it was either told, we can't tell you what we won't tell you. So in my head, overthinking things, as I suppose anybody would, I thought, oh my gosh, this means I'm going to die. So I'm going to die in the next few days, weeks, months, whatever. So yeah, it's sort of, I was like, right, when and if I get out, I was trying to be positive, when and if I get out of this, I need to do a race. Like as soon as my treatment, obviously I couldn't do one during my treatment, understandably, but as soon as like my treatment, my chemotherapy and my operations and stuff were over, and I had sort of healed, whether I still had cancer or not, obviously I wouldn't know, but I wanted to do a race. So that was my that was my goal already. And I had booked races at that point, but I obviously had to defer or cancel all my races. So that was sort of 2021, 22. So my first race was September 2022, which was 1 week before my second operation, before my stoma reversal. So when I had the stoma, at first I sort of knew during the first operation that I was going to probably get a stoma, but I wouldn't know until I sort of woke up. And it was meant to be a 4-hour operation. It ended up being 9 hours. And when I sort of asked the surgeons why did it take so long, why was it 9 hours rather than 4, and they were like, it was keyhole. And they said, well, when we were sort of trying to cut you open, they were like, you were solid. And I was just like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, you've kept yourself so fit. They were like, it was really like absolute nightmare to try and cut you open. They were like, I was like ripped. I'm not somebody who does gym, but like I was ripped because I was training so much. They were like, we've really found it difficult to open you up. And then they were like, because obviously I'd lost a lot of weight as well. And they were like, because you were so small, all your organs are like more tightly packed. Obviously they were conscious about sort of, I'm guessing, like accidentally cutting something else. All your organs are so close together, and when you're slimmer as well, like it's easier for the cancer to spread because it's got no kind of fat to jump into, sort of thing. They've got that barrier.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit bad, but like being able to say that you're so fit and so strong that the surgeons are struggling to cut you open is quite like an achievement to have, I feel.
Yeah, I was a bit like, okay, don't really know what to say, but it was just, I just needed some way of dealing with the cancer, and it was difficult to talk to people. It was like mentally, it was like difficult to talk to people because obviously, like I said, the first 5 months kept it a secret. But I didn't want to talk too much to my parents about it because my mum had been through similar. But I was conscious not to sort of bring it up too much to her because it's obviously like triggering. I didn't want to sort of discuss it too much with my dad because obviously, like, I can't imagine what he was going through, thinking, oh my gosh, my daughter's going through it, my wife's been through it, and we'd lost a few people in the family due to cancer. So I was thinking, like, Dad's always looking after somebody. And so I didn't want to sort of upset them. They're at that age, I didn't want to stress them out. So talking to friends was difficult because, they could sit there and empathise, but I don't think unless you've been through cancer, you really get it. And, I'd have people saying, somebody in my family went through cancer, I know what it's like. And I'd be like, no, you don't. I get they were just trying to be nice. But unless you've been through it, it's really difficult to try and explain, like, what you're feeling, and, like, you're so emotional. Your emotions are all over the place.
Yeah. How did it affect you once you did open up to people? Did you have like a more positive reaction afterwards? Or? Yeah,
it was a lot easier. Like when I actually came out with it, I sort of did a post on Facebook and Instagram because I was like, do you know what? This is the easiest way to reach people without me having to repeat the story 200 times. So it was my second cycle of chemo. So it was on the Friday, and then on the Monday was my 40th birthday, so really rubbish timing. And the first and second chemo, I reacted badly to it. I had a really bad reaction to it, and I was really unwell. and my medication, because the first sort of few cycles they're trying to adjust your medication because, you know, everyone's going to react differently, and, you know, they're basically poisoning you, but they've got to get, obviously, the balance right. And so the first two chemos were horrific, and I remember, I think it was, I can't remember when I did the post, but it was around the second chemo, so either the day before or the day after the second chemo. I was just like, right, this is playing on my mind now. It's making me ill. It was just stressing me out. So I was like, I just need to just get out there. And it wasn't, I didn't want like the sympathy, and I didn't want people to be like, oh my gosh, you okay, blah, blah. You know, I didn't want any of that. I was doing it because I just needed to get rid of that stress, because it was just building and building, and it was just making me ill. And secondly, and more importantly, I wanted to sort of raise awareness, because I wouldn't want anybody, not even my worst enemy, to go through what I had to go through. It was horrific. Chemo especially horrific. Sorry, I've gone off on one again.
Sorry.
What were you saying again?
So I was just saying about how opening up sort of helped you and let you ease away from that stress.
Yeah. So yeah, opening up. It was like, you know, when people say like, is a weight lifted off your shoulders, I never really understood what people meant by that until that moment. And I just put the post out there, and I turned my phone off for in probably like a day, because I knew I'd get ding, 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 ding. I'd have the Facebook messages, the Instagram messages, and I kind of pretty much knew what they were going to be saying, and I'd get the WhatsApp messages, and I was like, I wanted to put the news out there, but I didn't want to deal with the barrage, and it was a barrage. I turned my phone off and the next day, and it was crazy. It was just constantly dinging, and I had to like build myself up to read those. And also, like in the post then, it was just like something, I mentioned something about, when is my 40th birthday in a few days, like, great. Happy 40th to me. So yeah, on my actual 40th birthday, I was really, really ill. My dad came over, I was on the floor basically screaming in pain, really, really well, and I felt terrible, but it was like a new level of terrible. And my friend, she's like 3 doors down, she used to be a paramedic. And I text her and I text my dad. I was like, something's not right. I'm really not well. Like, this was on a different level. I remember my dad coming in, and I was just like, Dad, I says, like, something's not right. So I think either him or my friend rang Valindra emergency out of hours, explaining what was going on and taking my temperature. My temperature was sky high, so they were sort of worried that I'd developed sepsis, which you can easily during sort of chemotherapy. I remember looking at my dad and bursting into tears, and I was like, right, it's the 21st of December, I was born on this day, and this is the day I'm going to die. I remember looking at him, and he's a bit like my sense of humour. He's like, oh, no, don't be silly, no, we're not going to die today, like, we'll do it another day, sort of thing. But that was just a sense of humour. But I remember thinking as well, like, oh my God, what is he going through, watching his daughter go through this? Like, this must be really difficult. But yeah, during that week, it was like really overwhelming week for me, sort of telling everyone the news, and then having to force myself, because I left it for about 3-4 days, having to force myself then to read not only the happy 40th birthday, hope you're having a great time. I was just like, yeah, I'm busy dying on the floor. As well as the messages to the actual post, which said, by the way, I've got cancer, and this is what's going to happen, and I don't know what the future holds. Yeah. So, yeah.
How do you think sharing your story has potentially helped others then?
I have had, so like it's Bowel Cancer Awareness Month in April, so this month. So I do post periodically. Whether people get fed up of me posting about bowel cancer, I don't know, but I don't really care, because if it saves somebody's life or helps somebody in some way, then that's all that matters. If people don't want to read my posts, that's fine. They don't have to read my posts, just delete me. But yeah, I have had sort of, because I've been very vocal about sort of like, here are the 5 main signs of bowel cancer, and here are some others which they don't tell you about. And I've been very open in that, anything you want to ask. And like, people, like, poo in itself is like a taboo subject. Like, nobody talks about poo, understandably, but we all do it, so just get over it. So yeah, and I know it's not a conversation you have every day with people, but potentially that's why probably a lot of people end up having bowel cancer, because it's an embarrassing subject to talk about, and people wouldn't necessarily go to the doctors, especially like a lot of men don't talk about these things, and a lot of men don't go to the doctors. But yeah, it's about just sort of having an awareness of the main sort of symptoms of bowel cancer. And I have had, oh gosh, probably about 8 or 9 people approach me who kind of friends or friends of friends, and mainly male actually, and saying, oh, I've been watching your journey, I hope you don't mind me asking a question. And just like, look, I'm no doctor, I'm no expert, I could just only sort of answer what I've gone through. But they're like, can I ask you a question? I was like, yeah. And they've sort of asking away, and just like, look, just go to your doctor. It's better off to go to your doctor and find out there's nothing wrong with you, or you've got IBS, IBD, colitis, Crohn's, hemorrhoids, whatever, than to, nobody wants it to be cancer. Obviously, when you get diagnosed with cancer, you inadvertently, you join a club that nobody ever wants to be a member of. Yeah. But yeah, it's about sort of getting the message out. And yeah, just making sure that nobody else has to go through the same journey.
Yeah. What are some of the signs and symptoms of bowel cancer then, for those that are listening? So,
I gotta try and remember this now, I should remember. So, blood, either in your poo or obviously on the toilet paper. Your bowel movements, change in bowel movements. So you could be going more often or less often. When you go in, it could be, I know this sounds grim, but like different consistency to normal. You could be having diarrhea. Also, constipation apparently is one of them. So yeah, just a change in bowel habits, needing to go to the toilet more often, obviously number 2, and sometimes when you feel like you've emptied your bowels, like for example myself, I was going to the toilet, and then by the time I got out of the toilet I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go again, so it's back in, it's in, out. A pain or lump in your stomach is another symptom, and weight loss is another one. Yeah. So they're the main ones. There are others, obviously, numerous other sort of symptoms that I had, but yeah, they're the main ones.
Yeah, it's sort of all individual, isn't it?
Yeah. Tiredness is another one, which is quite common with most cancers. When I was sort of looking back thinking, did I get the sort of tiredness thing? At the time I was having the symptoms, no. But when I was looking back to maybe early 2020, I remember when my colleagues saying to me, oh my gosh, you're training too much. I remember thinking, like, why are you saying that? Like, you don't know how much I train. And she was like, you're tired all the time. And it wasn't just tiredness, I was like properly fatigued, like couldn't function. And sort of I've looked back and thought, was that one of the the early signs, but they kind of disappeared. So I don't know generally whether that was the cancer or whether that was just because I was training so much, but that was obviously a year prior to diagnosis.
Yeah.
Because when I sort of asked the surgeon after, I don't know if it was the first or second op, I said, I know you haven't got a sort of crystal ball, but how long do you think I potentially had this cancer? And he said between 5 and 20 years. And I was like, wow. So I could have had this when I was in uni, like 21 years old, 18 years old. Because bowel cancer is very slow growing. And you tend to have sort of like polyps first, and then they can turn cancerous if not sort of dealt with. Like I said, I'm no expert, but it's very slow growing. So, it could have been a case of the cancer just developed the previous year, or I could have had it for 5 years. I could have had it 20 years while I was in uni. Who knows? But I'm never going to know the answer. But yeah, so early diagnosis is definitely key. Yeah. Mine was not early diagnosis. Mine was, I was stage 3, and it spread into my lymph nodes. So I had like 18 lymph nodes removed. So, but it was kind of on that cusp then, where it's like, obviously at the time I didn't know it was stage 3. I didn't know what stage it was at all. I didn't know if everything was fine or if I was gonna drop dead within weeks. I didn't have a clue. But yeah, so early diagnosis, like stage 1 or 2, is obviously when like bowel cancer do sort of they do like a lot of sort of awareness publications and social media sort of posts is all about sort of early diagnosis. The earlier you catch people stage 1, 2, the better.
Yeah.
So
Are you cancer free now?
yes, so I'm about 18 months in remission. So I found out in, what year were we, 24, June 2022. Yeah, after my first operation. I had to have a genetics testing done as well to see if I've got any, if there was anything in my genes that had been passed on to me. Because so my mum had bowel cancer. My nan, who was my mum's mum, I thought she died of stomach cancer, but when I've done more research, it turns out she had bowel cancer. I didn't know that at the time. I only found that out about maybe a year ago when I was doing my genetics testing. So, and the genetics as well will test to a certain extent as well, like the sort of chances of you passing that on to a child. Like if I have a child, and that might sort of help me make the decision whether I want a child or not. Albeit I'm 42, so I mean time's not on my hands, so I don't know if that's an option I want to take anyway, but yeah.
And what have been the sort of implications of the cancer now that it's gone? Like you were saying to me before, that you still get some symptoms and side effects from it?
Yeah, so with it wasn't so bad with the radiotherapy. I think I had about 5 side effects, and they all sort of disappeared, apart from caused me to be infertile, so that's obviously forever. And it caused me to go into the menopause, so that's just a whole nother story, menopause. I've had some like major issues with that, and trying to get people to listen to me about menopause. Again, people don't really talk about menopause, and people of a certain age don't talk about menopause. And I was just like, yeah, 1 minute I'm getting told I've got cancer, and then that was in the July, and then, when was it? In November, bam, straight into infertility and starting the menopause. So that's been really difficult. Sorry, what you said?
Just asking what like the side effects have been from the cancer.
Yeah. So from the chemotherapy itself, I had 53 side effects. I actually sat down and wrote a list. Some of them are still things I suffer from. For example, I got peripheral neuropathy in my feet, so my feet are constantly like pins and needles, so I can't really feel them. I've got probably 20% feeling in my feet, so when I'm running it's sometimes quite difficult because I have to sort of look down to see if I'm actually hitting the floor because I can't necessarily feel my feet. And I'm like really clumsy as well, so that's obviously the first thing they say as a runner: don't look at your feet because you're going to trip up. So that's not great. But one of the main sort of issues from the cancer is my issues have like started since the stoma reversal. So I had the stoma reversal, and like everything, there's sort of risk that things might not go the way you want them to. But my stomach has been horrific since then. And looking back, I don't ever remember them giving me the option of not having the stoma reversal. But if I knew what was coming now, I'd 100% would have kept my stoma. My stomach issues are just horrific. And this is my battle with triathlon. So obviously I train a lot. I race a lot. I only started racing like a year ago. So, but I either have to eat very little or not at all. Not so much races, but training. I either eat very little or not at all, which is counterproductive really, because obviously your energy levels are gonna just dip. But as soon as I eat, not so much eat snacks, but as soon as I start eating meals, it's like game over. I'm just, there's going to be a little accident. So, especially with running's not good. So having to do a lot of my training on little or no food. And my races, I do eat before my races, obviously, but again, I'm limited to how much I can have. I can't have anything big. Because I've got no control. I mean, obviously I'm on medication to sort of try and stop it, but the stomach's got a mind of its own. Yeah. And when you get anxious, set your stomach off, and when your stomach sets off, you get anxious, so it's a vicious circle.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so like I try to do sort of practice like meditation and have like calm time, and I love like classical music, so I'll have a bath, put some classical music on to try and like chill myself out. Hot water bottles, anything to try and, but I'm like 100 miles an hour. I've always been the same. I am 100 miles an hour. I don't know how to stop. So me trying to calm myself down, difficult, easier said than done. Yeah. And it's just fitting it, into a day, like having to like work full time, training for hours a day. And it's like, at what point do you fit in a nice calm 15 minutes, half an hour meditation? It's like, it's difficult.
It is a difficult balance.
Yeah.
What I'm really interested in finding out is, because you went from really only building up your triathlon stuff after sort of having these issues and not knowing, like, you couldn't do events because you was going through treatment. How did you balance having the treatment but then still fitting in enough training and having the energy and the output to then turn up and do an event?
Sorry, say again.
So, like, with your treatments and everything, you said you wasn't allowed to do any triathlon events, and I can imagine going through the cancer treatment like really affected your training. How did you balance your training with the treatments to then turn up and do a triathlon?
So, with the IVF, they were basically like, right, you can train, but we prefer you not to, or just like chilled out training, because obviously you've got to be your stress level. You can't be getting stressed because it's going to affect the eggs and all sorts. So I can't remember whether I completely stopped or just kind of really like chilled it down for like a few weeks, and then until the sort of egg collection, and then I was like back on it again. Radiotherapy was fine. I didn't sort of it wasn't until I finished radiotherapy that I started having pain, and I was like in a lot of pain, but that was normal. But during the actual radiotherapy itself, the 5 days, completely fine. So I think I was just cycling at the time in the house on the turbo, so that was fine. Chemotherapy, that was the sticking issue. So I was on like 3-week cycles times 6. So I was told, like, you're probably not going to be doing any training, because like everything I asked in relation to the cancer was, but can I still do this, and can I still do this? And they were like, people normally, they'll ask questions like, will I be able to go out for meals with my family, and I don't know, will I be able to sit in the cinema, just normal questions. And I was like, so will I still be able to swim, because like it's like the chemo going to affect, like, because of the chlorine? And they were like, no, it's fine. I was like, right, okay. So can I bike? And they were like, yeah, it's fine. I was like, can I run? And they were like, yeah. And they were like, you're probably not going to be doing much training though, because you're not going to have much energy. I was like, yeah, okay. And I was just like, so like the first week, so I used to have chemo on a Friday. So I'd have chemo on the Friday, and you'd come home. Obviously you can't drive yourself home because you are like, woo, on another planet. So like the next day then, I was just like, oh my gosh, like started really going downhill. And you're on steroids as well, and they just make you feel terrible, and they just make you eat and eat and eat, and I went the size of a house. And it just made me really irrational. And yeah, but when I was on the steroids, the only one benefit I would say, my house has never been so clean. I remember my dad coming in one day, and he was just like, are you okay? It's like, what are you doing? I was just like, oh, I'm busy. It was like, and I was like, blah. And he was like, what are you doing? I was just like, I'm hoovering. And he was like, yeah, I can see that. He was like, but why are you hoovering the ceiling? And I was just like, what needs doing? And he was like, yeah, does it though? I was just like, yeah. And like literally, like you could eat your dinner off my floor. My house had never been so clean. I bleached every floor and wall in the house, and my house stunk of bleach. But but like the first like few days, I'd have the chemo on the Friday, so on the Saturday I'd start going downhill. Sunday worse, Monday worse, Tuesday it was horrific. I just felt every Tuesday for each cycle, I just like, I feel like I'm going to drop dead. I felt terrible, because you're coming back down off the steroids as well, so you're taking less and less each day, so you feel worse and worse. And then, so I knew really after the first chemo, I was just like, I don't know if every chemo is going to be the same, but I said I'm presuming each cycle. So I knew like after the first week, I was like, right, so for the next however many cycles, the first week is just going to be a no-go, absolutely. Like, I remember thinking I'd get up in the morning, and I'm not one for daytime TV, but it was my aim every day to get downstairs for the start of this morning, which started at 10 a.m, which is not my cup of tea program to watch, but that was my aim. That was my only one aim that day, is to get downstairs for 10 a.m. to see the start of the program, because that was my get up. That was just my aim for the day. So like I'd start getting up at 8 o'clock, and it would take me between 8 and 10 to get up, get out of bed, get in the bathroom, have a shower, get changed, get downstairs, 2 hours. And it was just, and I used to look back and think, why is it taking me 2 hours to get downstairs? I'm literally like 10 seconds away, but yeah, just nothing worked. You're just so slow and zero energy. So first chemo, I was just like, yeah, there's gonna be no training at all. And I would sit on the sofa, I'd put the TV on, put Channel 3 on, and I'd made myself sort of some like cereal with my cocktail of drugs, because I was taking steroids and anti-sickness, and I was taking chemotherapy tablets as well. So I'd have the IV chemotherapy on the Friday, but I'd be taking chemo tablets as well. And I was on like 1,700 milligrams of drugs a day, and I was like, woo. So, I've forgotten where we went with this. Where was I going?
Just talking about how it was affecting your training.
Oh, yeah. So the first week was, I just couldn't train at all. So I would turn the TV on and I would watch TV, and that's the channel that has stayed on all day until 10 o'clock in the night, because I generally didn't even have the energy to go to change the channel on the remote. Just didn't. I had nothing in me. Like, it took everything for me to sort of walk to the kitchen, the room next door, to, make myself a bowl of cereal or a cup of tea. So yeah, training was just not happening as much. Like, it annoyed me because, like, when I don't train, I'm like, I need to, I always need to be doing something. But I sort of gave up in my own head and was like, law is not happening. You are not training. So that second week, then you start feeling better, and I was like, oh, I'm feeling a bit more perky, right? Okay, so I used to go on the turbo, and most of my training was the turbo. So I jump on there for an hour, sometimes 2 hours, depending on how I feel. And then the third week then, I felt absolutely amazing. So I would go out running, only like a couple of miles, like 5k or something. I'd be on the turbo for like an hour, 2 hours. I'd go turn up for like swimming on Friday night with Tri Club. And my coach was like, are you okay? So the first two chemos, obviously he didn't know I had cancer. So, but after that, I'd sort of tell him, like, these are the weeks I'm feeling rubbish, these are the weeks I'm feeling good. So I would turn up for the sort of third swim, like the swim for the third week sort of thing. But he'd be like, right, do whatever you want to do, follow the plan. If you don't want to do what everyone else is doing, he said, just do your own thing. If you want to get out, he said, just get out. He said, it doesn't matter. He's like, this is just to keep you occupied, And it was me, obviously, deciding to be there. That was my swimming coach, Bertie. So yeah, and unbeknown to him, like, I remember doing a kick set one day, and I hate kick. I'm a really lazy kicker. And so I remember it was like a few 100 meters kick, and he was obviously in the shallow end doing his coaching with everyone else, and I was in a lane on my own. I remember kicking, and as I was going down the deep end away from him, I just burst into tears, crying all the way down. And then I'd be like, right, on the way back, don't let him see you cry, because he's going to be like, you need to get out because you're not in the right place. So I'd turn around, go back down to the shallow end, and I'd be like, just totally normal. He'd be like, you okay? I'd be like, yeah. Turn around, go to on the deep end, cry again. So each time I was going down the deep end, because nobody was looking at me because everyone's behind me, I was like, cry. I'd be crying underwater, like, to the point where I took my goggles off at one point and it was just full of tears. But yeah, and like, I'd be underwater in the deep end, do a tumble turn. I'd go to the bottom of the pool, and they'd probably think, what on earth is she doing? I would just like scream underwater, and they'd probably think, what's going on? But I just needed that release. Yeah. Or sometimes I'd go for a run to the beach. I'd go down Scare Beach, where nobody ever goes running, hardly anybody is ever there. And I'd go for miles and miles and miles, going towards Port Talbot, and look around. Nobody, like, you can see for miles and miles, nobody around. I would just scream. I just needed that release.
What took you from sort of that point then to now being in like Team GB Triathlon? Because it just seems like such an unlikely place to start. I do sometimes question, like, how did this happen? I don't know. But yeah, I did my first triathlon in September 22. It was the week before the Stoma reversal, so that was Newport Sprint Tri. And I did it, really enjoyed it. I didn't have a clue what was going on, and the rules of triathlon, and I was in transition, and I was like,
remember one of my friends laughing at me. She was like, mate, why have you got 2 pairs of sunglasses? And I was just like, well, one for cycling, one for running. And she was like, mate, it's a sprint tri, like, you're going to be doing this for like an hour and 30 top, that you don't. I was just like, yeah, well. Like, just not knowing the rules, like turning up and thinking, well, this is probably potentially going to be my only race anyway, because I don't know obviously what the future holds, but was trying to sort of stay positive. But yeah, so I kind of did that. Then I had my second operation a week later. So again, I kind of went downhill, like fitness wise, because obviously the recovery from that, like major surgery on your stomach. And I was told, yeah, you probably won't be doing anything for a few months. And I think something like 3-4 days later, I was like, oh, Dad, set the turbo up for me. Like, I just don't think, like, the surgeons, like the medical team, that I don't think they knew how to deal with me, because like they don't tend to have people who are really, really fit. And they were like, oh yeah, you won't be doing anything for ages. And I was a bit like, that was my determination. I was just like, no, I'll make that decision. So yeah, so by the sort of, that was September, so maybe by the sort of maybe November, I was kind of getting my fitness back, so trained all the way through Christmas. And then my first race, I think in 2023, was a Wildflower Duathlon in the March. I'd obviously never done a duathlon, so I did really well, and I was like setting myself targets, but like reachable targets, but I was just like, yeah, so I was just like, see how they go. Really enjoyed that. Then I think my second race then, I went straight from the sprint tri to a Olympic, so I went and did Tata Steel tri. So it was a longer distance, and I was feeling a bit more pressured for that then, because it was like the Welsh Championships, so there was going to be kind of like pros doing it as well as the average triathlete, and you had to give like your predicted time for the swim, and I remember putting in whatever time I put down, and then seeing the list before the race of what your sort of starting wave you're in, like you would like a running race. And I remember looking at it thinking, oh my gosh, I remember like texting my swimming coach and being like, oh my god, like, have you seen the start list? And he was like, no. I was just like, I'm livid. And he's like, why? And it's like, well, there's all the pro women first, and then there's all the men, and then I said it's all the females. And he's like, yeah. And I said, I'm in the females. And he was like, right. I was just like, well, I know I'm not a pro, obviously it's not my job, but I was just like, I'm not being funny, but I could probably beat some of them. And he was just like, yeah, you probably can, trying to be really enthusiastic. So yeah, I got to race day, I was like super nervous. I remember talking to one of my friends, going in for like a acclimatization swim, and then just being an absolute bag of nerves before the race. And he was just like, why are you so worried? Like, you're a really, really good swimmer. Like, you're one of the best swimmers here. I was just like, oh, I don't know. It's one of those things, like, as soon as I get in and do that first stroke, just all disappears. But beforehand, I was the same as a swimmer, just an absolute bag of nerves. I just don't know why. It's really irrational. So I remember doing the race, really loving it. Sort of learned some lessons about how not to do transition, just taking way too long. But I remember coming out of the swim, and my friend was watching me, and he was like screaming my name, and I remember he sent me the video, and he was just screaming. He was just like, you're first place. And I was like, what? And he was like, you first out of the swim, female. I was just like, shut up. And he was like, no, seriously. And he was just like, anyway. I was like, what? And he was like, just get on the bike. I was like, oh, right, okay. Just like, messing around. So yeah, I remember finishing the race and being like, oh my god, I really enjoyed that. And sort of like looking at the results, and I was just like, oh my god. And he was like, have you seen the results of the pros? And I was like, no. He was like, oh well, there's like 32 pros, or like semi-pros, male and female, then the men and the women. He's like, and I beat 32 out of the 36 pros in just in the swimming bit, because I'm not that great at cycling and running. And he was like, you beat 32 out of 36. I was like, oh my god, I'm actually alright at this, like, alright. So I was like, yeah, so bear in mind I'd quit swimming like 24 years ago. I was thinking, oh okay, it's still there. So I'd already entered half Ironman Swansea, So that was July last year, 2023. So by that time I'd hired a coach. So I got a one-to-one coach called Zoe from A to Z Triathlon. So she's an ex-pro. So obviously she knows everything there is to know about triathlon. So like prior to sort of hiring her, I was just like training for the sake of training because it was keeping me busy. But I probably wasn't being very constructive, just like getting on the turbo for like 2 hours but just spinning, not actually really getting much out of it. So yeah, I hired her, which was February, actually Valentine's Day last year, and yeah, she's been great. She's been like a massive part of my journey and like really helpful, and she's had to learn all about sort of bowel cancer, stoma, and my bowel disease, and all sorts, and how like food affects me, and dehydration and all sorts. I remember chatting to her one day, and she was like, right, let's meet up for coffee to discuss what races you're doing. And this was when I first sort of hired her, and I'm still with her now. And she was like, right, what races have you got? And I showed her the list, and she was just like, like, what? Why are you doing so many races? And I was just like, well, most of them, in my defence, were like deferrals from the last like 2 years where I'd had to cancel them because of the cancer. But I had a lot of races coming up, and she was like, I don't think she was like, okay, we'll go with this. So yeah, and I said, I'm doing, like, there was a couple of races where I was doing an aquathon, which is a swim followed by a run. And I was like, I really love these races, but I said, I just really don't like running. And she was like, what do you mean? And she was like, you're all right running? I was just like, oh, I'm all right. I'm not great, but I said, I'm all right. But I said, oh, it's a shame there's no sport that exists, whereas swim followed by bike. And she was like, but there is. I was like, what? And she was like, aqua bike. And I was like, have you just made that up? And she was like, no, it's a sport. So I like Googled it, and she was just like, well, why don't you go for it? And she was just like, they do races where you can qualify for Team GB. And I just remember laughing, thinking, Team GB, like, are you actually joking? Like, no, like, I'm not that good. And she was like, oh, you do stand a good chance because, you're a really good swimmer. And I was like, I don't know if she's having a laugh here, but yeah, I was like, okay, I'll sort of look into it, and sort of like left it for a few months because I thought, oh no, there's no way I'm going to reach that sort of level. So kind of left it for a few months, and then I think the race was, like possibly June, obviously last year. Then about, I don't know, like a couple of weeks beforehand, looked into it, and I was just like looking at the sort of people in my age group, because you qualified based on age, so obviously like this is like Team GB age group team. So I was thinking, right, I don't really stand a chance, but what's the worst that can happen? I've survived cancer, I've got through it, and I'm invincible. So just go for it, and if I don't qualify, it doesn't matter. I'm just going for the sort of experience. And she was like, just go, have the experience, enjoy it. So that's what I did. So yeah, and I did that race, and there's 3 qualifying races. So I did 2 of the qualifying races, one in, I think it was in Bedfordshire, and one in Cambridgeshire. And yeah, I qualified for Team GB. Nice. I still don't know how it's happened. I was like, oh. So yeah, but prior to that, so the week after, or 6 days after Half Ironman Swansea, I did a race. It was a Welsh Champs race. I kind of didn't really look much into it. It was an aquathon. So I had to come in first place in my age, and I can't remember what I came overall, but like top 10 overall. So I had first place in my age, but kind of I was on the podium and stuff. I was like, oh. And kind of not thinking any more of it, not realising that qualified me for Team Wales. I had literally no clue until 2 months ago, February, I had an email from Team Tri Cymru, and they were like, oh, congratulations for qualifying for Team Wales. I was like, sorry, what? I was like, what? I was just like, literally had no idea I was in the running for it. I was like, okay, that's cool. But yeah, in November, just gone, so November 23, found out through the 2 races I did in England that I qualified for Team GB for aqua bike. So I'm going to the World Championships in Spain in October this year to compete against everybody else. So it's a bit scary, but yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and I met a girl at a race. She's from up Grantham in England. We both qualified together, and like she was one of those people. Knowing sometimes you meet somebody, and you just click. And we chatted before the race, and I was like, "So how old are you?" And she was like, "How old are you?" And we were chatting, and we were like, "Oh my god, like she's my competition." And then yeah, we both qualified, and we were like, "Oh my god, like we're going to the World Champs. Like what's going on?" And she's never qualified before, so we're going together, staying in the same hotel and same flight and everything. Yeah, it's all just a crazy whirlwind. So I went from never having raced to qualifying for Team GB in Wales, and doing a half Ironman and numerous other triathlons, all in the space of about 8-9 months. So it was really like, whoo. But yeah, but I don't know any different, so yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah, it's a bit of a crazy journey.
Yeah. So you said you've got Worlds next.
Yeah.
What else have you got coming up for your future then?
So I was supposed to do my first race of the year on Sunday, just gone, so a few days ago, but that got cancelled because of the weather warning. So we went and did it anyway, just in a local pool, so myself and 2 of the girls from the club. So that was really fun. I was trying to do like make it realistic. So we went from the pool. We were in a tri-suit, so we had some like funny looks from people, like public swimmers being like, "What is going on?" and running straight out of the pool into the gym, soaking wet, like towel drying yourself, jumping on the bike. Yeah, and the people in the gym being like, but yeah, we're trying to like make it really sort of like you would like a normal race, being like shouting the girls, be like, "Come on, girls, you're doing really well," you know, like taking videos and stuff. But yeah, so that was an unofficial race because the original one in Ammanford was called off. My next race is in next month, Swansea Sprint Triathlon. So I've never done that race before. But yeah, looking forward to that. And then I've got long course weekend again, which is in end of June, I think it was. Okay. So I did that race last year, but the half distance, so it was so half Ironman distance, it was like 1.2 mile swim, I think it was 70 mile bike and a half marathon. So the swim last year, I don't think anybody believed me at the time until I showed them the picture that I was sent, but I came first in the swim for my age, and I came 4th overall, females. But because most of the people I knew were swimming in the race, they obviously didn't see me going over the finish line, and they put like one of those finishing banners out for me. At the time, I remember sort of going over it thinking, maybe they do this for everybody, thinking, you know, whatever. My friend was like, "No, you idiot, you won the race." I was like, "What?" Obviously not overall, but like my age, but 4th overall. I remember thinking, all right, okay, next year, podium. So yeah, so I'm doing that again this year. Doing Swansea half Ironman again in July. There's a few other Saundersfoot Sprint Tri, which is my favourite race so far. I love that race. So that was quite a hilly one really, but it was really nice because it was they do Saundersfoot on the same weekend as Ironman in Tenby. So you've got like all the crowds there. And I did really well in the swim there. I think I came out something like 3rd in the swim. But yeah, I love that race, so I'm doing it again. Nice. So yeah, and then obviously my A race is Swansea half Ironman, but my proper AA race is the Worlds. So yeah. That's
quite a lot to fit in now.
Yeah, so it's going to be a busy year again.
Yeah, that's incredible. Something I ask every guest at the end of the podcast is, if you could set one challenge for the listeners of the podcast to complete this week, what would it be? I know I put you on the spot with that one.
If I could set one challenge, I need to think a minute.
So I'll give you some examples of other ones that have been given. I know we spoke about trigger points on Instagram. So one of the guests set the challenge to go and visit a trigger point. We've had other ones where it's just get up early for the week to get everything that you need done before everyone else is up, sort of thing. We've had people say go out and do like one of those runs where you pick up the litter as you go. Just little things like that. So it's been like quite a wide variety of challenges.
Okay. I'd probably say, I know that probably sounds cliche, do one thing every day that scares you.
Nice.
Because life is short. Life is very short. So life's too short to have fears. And like you see things written down like, what's your biggest fears? And people start like listing things, and you're like, but if you confront your fear, it's not going to be a fear anymore. So the best way to deal with a fear is just confront it. And I know that sounds scary, and I didn't used to be that person, like probably prior to cancer, I'd shy away from things, but just get it done. If there's something that scares you, unless you deal with it, it's always going to scare you. So do it. Just do it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
Having the time. Good luck with all your races.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast. If you want to find out more about our guests, check out the links in the description below, where you'll also find a link to our website, our socials, and my BigMoose fundraiser. Let us know in the comments who you want to hear from next, and we'll try and get them booked on as best we can. And if you want to get involved with anything Adventure Athletes, we've got so many things going on. We've got our programming that we'll do for people trying to take their next step into their own personal adventures. We'll do sports massage. We've got events that we're organising both online and in person, and we've got some different activity days based around getting you outdoors and learning something new. So if you want to get involved, check out the website. If you want to find out more about the guest, check out the links in the description, and let us know who you want on next.